Hello, hello. So the other day I was listening to a recording by this woman named Josie Grouse, and she teaches all about psychic mediumship, intuition, manifestation, and all of that. And she shared something about the top 5 regrets among the dying. And I thought it was interesting, and I started talking with one of my clients about it and the top regret among people, and he was sharing what his regret was. Not that he's dying, but just he's like, fast forward, if something doesn't change, that would be a regret of mine. And so I thought it'd be interesting to go through each of the 5 regrets and just share them in case you haven't heard these before, which I hadn't either. This apparently is a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. I'm not sure when it was published. Oh, just kidding. It was published in 2011. So I'd be curious to know if that's changed at all. But I think a lot of them are pretty timeless, and we can be inspired by learning from what people have to say in their final days. So before we get into it, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel. If you enjoy my videos, the best thing you can do for me actually is share them and send them to people who you think would enjoy them. I just want my words, my poetry, the things that I share to reach as many people as possible. And the holidays are approaching. If you're looking for a fun gift idea, I have published a poetry book that is what a lot of people say a good coffee table book, because the cover is pretty and it's got these doodles on it, and it would make for a nice book for someone to pick up and kind of sift through as they wish. So if you're looking for an affordable, fun, different, and inspirational gift idea, then I encourage you to check that out as well. The link is in the video description. Without further ado, let's go through the top 5 regrets of the dying so that hopefully we won't have these same regrets when that gets to be us. The number one regret people say that they have is, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life more true to myself and not the life others expected of me. I think that's so true for so many people, and I think it happens so unconsciously. So many times we don't realize we're doing something for someone else, and then in hindsight, it's like, wait, did I actually make that decision? Or did I make that decision because of some external influence that I wasn't even necessarily conscious of or I wasn't thinking about? I think one of the biggest is when people make decisions about their career because we're so young. Usually we're in high school deciding where we want to go to college or what we want to study or what job we want to get right after high school. And we're just children at that point. And I think so many of us make that decision based on what we think our parents might approve of, or what our friends might think, or nowadays, I don't know, maybe it's social media, what people online might think. And then we have all this education and a degree, and we get work experience in something that we may not necessarily love. And a lot of people, I think, do eventually transition and they say, I'm going to quit my job and do what I really like and follow my heart's passion. But not everybody does. And we could save time in the long run by sticking true to our own values and our own passions. And I think we do this in really small ways too. So choosing your whole career based on what someone else wants, that's kind of a big example. But I think even the way that we dress, sometimes we wear things that are trendy even though we don't really like them. So for example, right now the trend with jeans, it's like these really baggy jeans that look good on some people, but I don't think they look good on me. And so I resisted buying a pair for the longest time. And then I recently bought a pair because they felt really fun to wear when I tried them on. I still haven't worn them because I'm like, I don't think this is me. But I know I'll wear them at some point because it's trendy, because it's fashionable. And so much of our behavior is influenced by our environment and by what's popular at the time, that may or may not be true to ourselves. And I'm not saying it's untrue to ourselves to follow trends, because I can look back and think about skinny jeans that I used to love, and now I'm like, I don't know if I like those. I don't think with clothes, for example, or like our tastes can change, of course. I don't think that's a reflection of our core identity. And part of life is experimenting and trying on different things. And so I think when we're trying to live a life true to ourselves, part of the process is listening to what other people have to say and saying, oh, that worked for them. Let me try it and see how it works for me. A lot of times, especially now where I think we're swinging so far in the other direction of right now, the narrative is be yourself, be true to yourself. I'm going to do me. And all of that is great. But I think sometimes we go so far to the extreme that then it means we feel like to be ourselves is to be dramatically different from everyone else, or we're trying so hard to be authentic and to be individual that we actually are doing it to show off in some way or to prove ourselves in some way. And that also is not necessarily who we deeply, truly are at our soul and core level. And I think to figure out who we really are and what it is we want to embody and how we want to come across, we need to experiment. We need to try different things at different points in our life and see what feels good. And I don't think that that is a decision we make one time and then that lasts us the rest of our lives. I think we're constantly evolving. And so who I was last week may not be who I am today. But with this big regret of living a life more true to myself, I think it really comes down to making decisions based on what your intuition knows that you need and what you know would be in your highest good, as opposed to making big decisions and even really small daily decisions based on what someone else expects of you, whether it's your parents, your colleagues, your friends, social media, or even yourself and our own narratives that we have around who we quote unquote should be, and really kind of letting all of that go and saying, who would I be if I could snap my fingers and be anyone in the world? Like, what would you be doing? How would you be spending your time if you could just cast a spell and create your dream life in an instant? So what I recommend to prevent that regret of wishing you'd lived a life more true to yourself as opposed to doing what others expected of you is think of one thing you're doing right now in your life, or one pattern you have, one habit you have that you could shift, that you think, you know, I don't love pink. I'm wearing it because I believe it feels feminine and soft. This is not a real example. I love pink. I personally love this sweater. It's new. But I'm just saying, think of something in your life and get really curious and really put a magnifying glass on your daily decisions and asking yourself, am I doing this because it feels right for me? Or am I doing it because I saw an Instagram post that said it's good? Or because I know it would make my parents happy? And I think there is something to be said for caring about other people, and sometimes doing things because it makes someone else happy is not bad. And that's a much longer discussion. I'm not suggesting to people please and all of that from an unhealthy place, but every once in a while, like, it's okay to do something because it brings someone else joy. We don't need to lose that. And we can do those things in integrity and alignment with who we truly are. So my challenge for you is think of one thing in your life right now that if you could shift that, you would feel just a little more in alignment with who you are and less like you're doing something for or because of someone else. Number 2, the second top regret among the dying is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Now, I personally can't really relate to this one because I don't work very much. And actually, a lot of times I wish I worked more because I feel this restlessness. I feel like I should be doing more with my time. I want to be doing more with my time. My job is just not super busy at the moment. And anyway, but I talk to a lot of people. My job is a coach, and I'm having conversations all the time with corporate executives and even just not executives, but just people in the working world who work so much. And I think, again, there's a balance to be had. I don't think I work enough, and I think working a little bit more would bring me fulfillment, hence why I'm using my non working time to make videos and things like that. And I think that there are a lot of people who get sucked into the trap of working so much that then they forget who they are and they don't have a life outside of work. And I was listening to something the other day that was talking about work-life balance, which is really kind of sad because work is part of your life. It's not like here's work and here's life. It's like work is part of our life. So to have work-life balance, it almost makes it like we're not living when we're working. And that's so sad because think of how many hours we spend at work. So instead of thinking of like, okay, I have to work so hard and work so many hours and that's my priority, I wonder what would happen if we all let our priority be how we can be of service to the world, how we can use our talents and skills to give back to the world in a way, of course, that will generate income and allow us to live sustainably and reasonably well and comfortably. But if one of the top regrets among the dying is I wish I hadn't worked so hard, maybe there's more to it than making money, and maybe looking at the pie chart of your life and figuring out where am I allocating my time, how much of it is spent working in a way that doesn't feel fruitful, that doesn't feel rewarding, and how much of it is spent on the things that I really love. Some people work all the time but don't get drained or don't get burnt out because they're doing something that really uplifts and inspires them. And so this is not to say quit your job and stop working. I don't think that's realistic. And like I said, I think we need to work a certain amount to feel fulfilled. I feel underfulfilled a lot of days because I'm not working as much as I would like. And there's another extreme where people are working so much that they're like, I don't have time to do anything. Some of my clients they're just so stressed and overwhelmed. Every time I see them, it's like, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. So my advice to them and my advice to you and to myself is zoom out, do a time audit. How am I spending my time? Where is my energy going? Where is my attention going? And is the work I'm doing lifting me up? Is it getting me closer to my dreams and goals? Is it making me the person that I want to be? Or am I doing it because I feel like I have to? Which kind of goes back to that first point of if we're doing something because of someone else's expectations, that also is a regret of the dying. And so do what feels true to you and integrity with your sense of self and is fulfilling and will, of course, get you income and what you need to sustainably live. But just know one of the top regrets among the dying is I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 3, the third regret among the dying is I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. So when I was talking about this last night with a client, I didn't even mention that one. I had only mentioned the first regret, which was I wish I lived a life more true to myself and less based on the expectations of other people. And he said, I don't really feel that. What I feel is I wish I could be more vulnerable with people. I wish I shared what was on my mind and my heart more. And then I went back and looked at this list because he asked to know what the other ones were, and I totally forgot that that was one of them. And it's so true, and I really resonate with that as well because we live in a society that very often glorifies apathy, especially in romantic relationships and even friendships. It's like it's cool to be the person who's like unfazed and unbothered, and I won't give you time or attention, and you can't hurt me, and I'm impervious to pain. I think there's a Taylor Swift lyric that said it best. One of her older songs says, "This is looking like a contest to see who can act like they care less." And I think that's a really good way to put modern dating, honestly, and also just the way we're living our lives. There's a glorification of being the person who doesn't care, saying like, oh, it's fine, I'm cool, I'm gonna make some sassy remark and some witty comment and make a meme about it and carry on about my day. And some of that can be healthy to not overindulge in negative emotions, but I think it's also really important to honor our feelings and to share those feelings and express them to people, especially the people we care most about, and to have the courage to say, yeah, I was really hurt by that. Or that was really meaningful for me. That was really touching for me when you did that. Or I've been thinking about you a lot and I just wanted to know how you're doing. Or whatever it is that feels nerve wracking to share. And every time we do it, I think it feels good. Like it's very intimidating sometimes to share our deeper, darker sentiments and to risk rejection, to risk ridicule based on what we say and how the other person might respond. But it's so worth it. And I find that every time I have an uncomfortable conversation, I feel better after. And it builds a connection with the other person because it's like you're finally being vulnerable, you're finally sharing, and that opens the door for the other person to share as well. And it just feeds into a positive cycle of openness, and that's how we deepen our connections. And I think again, it's really tempting and easy to stay on the surface because it's more comfortable, but it's so worth going deeper so that we don't regret it at the end of the day of like, oh, I wish that I'd had the courage to share that. And I can think of so many people who I regret not being totally honest with how I felt. Oh my gosh, I'm about to cry. So, and I'm a really sensitive person and I do share a lot of my feelings and I'm a poet. So it theoretically shouldn't be hard for me, but it can be very difficult. And I think it does bring up a lot of regrets based on my reaction right now, which I wasn't expecting. But one thing that I will say has helped me tremendously just work up the courage to share my feelings and work up the courage to speak to anyone in general is speech coaching. So I work as a speech coach and a confidence coach. And as part of that process, I had to receive speech coaching lessons myself. I say had to because at the time I really didn't necessarily want them. I hated public speaking. But now looking back, it's like, whoa, I got to get those for free. And it was amazing. And that kind of training is so incredibly powerful just to help us step into who we are and really to have the courage to talk to strangers, to have the courage to have deeper, difficult conversations, and to have the courage to show up in those relationships at work, personal lives, networking events, parties, wherever it is. And so I have consolidated my 9 years of experience as a coach, coupled with my own year or so of being an intern before I started working. So basically, a decade of experience learning about and talking about these concepts. I've condensed all of that into an online course that's available on Udemy at a very low price because I wanted to make this accessible for people because it really changed my life and it has empowered me to share and to have the courage to have difficult conversations, which is so meaningful. So if you're interested in checking that out, it's called Show Up Sure: Secrets to Embody Confidence for a Lifetime, and you can find the link for that in the video description. And I will say, I did have someone recently reach out to me and she said taking this course actually inspired her to write poetry and to express her feelings in a whole new way and give her that creative outlet. And she's actually started sharing those poems with people. And that, if you've seen my videos before, you know that I'm a poet as well. And so that is very touching and meaningful for me personally. But really, the goal is to help people feel comfortable being themselves and showing up and talking and having these difficult conversations so that you don't regret not having the courage to share your feelings at the end of life. The number four regret among the dying is I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. I feel that so much. 2 years ago now, which is wild that it's been that long. 2 years ago, I moved to my small hometown to be closer to my parents because my mom was put on hospice. And she's still alive, 2 years and counting in. And I'm so happy and grateful to be here with her. At the same time, though, in many ways, it's kind of put my life on pause. I can't travel the way my friends do. I don't have a very active social life right now. I don't know a ton of people in this area. It's really hard to do a lot of the things that I used to do. I had built a life for myself back in Savannah, Georgia before I moved here. And I'm sharing all of this to say, when I moved back, since moving back, it's been very hard for me to maintain relationships with my old friends because they're living their lives. They're doing fun things. They're getting engaged. They're getting married. They're having babies. They're buying businesses. They're starting businesses. They're buying their own offices. They're buying their own homes. And people are like, so what's new in your life? And I'm just like, my mom's still alive. And I'm doing as much as I can and making opportunities for myself while I'm here. I'm doing these videos. I published a book. I published an online course. I'm doing all the things that I feel like I can while being in this state. But I will say, the regret, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. I absolutely feel even at this point in my life, and I can only imagine how that would feel at the end of life. And so now, after about a year of being like, I don't want to talk to people because I don't want to share that I don't have anything to share and I feel inadequate and I feel like my life is just at a standstill compared to everyone else, I've learned to become more vulnerable with my friends and to say, hey, I don't have many updates. And it's really hard for me to talk to people who have a bunch of updates because I feel like I have nothing to contribute. So, what I'd love is if you can just tell me about your life. I want to stay up to date, but please don't expect me to have anything interesting to share. And just letting them know, like, hey, this gives me a lot of anxiety. I don't really have many updates. Please don't ask me a bunch of questions, has saved my friendships with so many people. And I've realized how much I love chatting with my friends, even if we're not in the same stage in life, because I don't know anyone else other than my brother who's in the stage of life I'm in, which is taking care of our sick mother. And happy to be in the stage for as long as she's alive. But this regret in particular hits home for me because there was a period of time where I was really sad and I missed my friends. And even, I think everyone, so you in your own life, look back on friendships you had at different chapters in your life. I can think about my high school friends and think, oh man, I wish I'd stayed in touch with so-and-so. I can think about my college friends and think, oh, I wish I'd stayed in touch with so-and-so. I can think about when I studied abroad. I can think about grad school. I can think about living in Savannah. I can think about these different chapters in my life. And there's always a person that I'm like, man, I would love to keep in touch with them. And here's the good news. It's not too late. It's not too late for us because if you're listening to this video, you're still alive. This is a regret among the dying, is not staying in touch with friends. So this can be the motivation and the inspiration and the encouragement that we all need to pick up the phone and call an old friend and just say, hey, how are you doing? And I will say, even though it gives me a lot of anxiety sometimes to talk to people at this stage in my life, just based on what's going on, I never regret it. I always have good conversations. Every time I hang up the phone, I feel like, man, I need to do that more often. And of course, sometimes people say the wrong thing or I feel a little worse about myself and my own situation, but most of the time, it's so worth it. And I'm just like, I wish we could do this every month. And I always say that, and then it doesn't necessarily always happen. But being intentional with conversations and keeping up with friends, I think is so super important. So my encouragement to you right now is to think of a friend, think of someone from some chapter of your life that you haven't talked to in a while, but you have good memories with, and think of how you can reach out to them, how you can stay in touch. And it can be a message on social media, just checking in. It can be a text message, but I think social media makes it feel like we're in touch with our friends when we're not necessarily, and we're watching from the side. I actually, I learned that a friend of mine from college, whose wedding I went to a few years ago, I learned from a mutual friend and then from social media that she'd gone through a divorce, but she and I hadn't talked. And so I wished her a happy birthday, but I'm like, do I say something about it? She didn't tell me personally, so I didn't bring it up. But then I had a Snapchat memory pop up from her wedding, and I realized it would have been her wedding anniversary, but she got divorced within the last few months. And so I was like, this may be overstepping, but I'm going to text her. And I texted her and I said, hey, I know we haven't talked about this. I know you didn't tell me personally, but I heard that you and your husband got a divorce. And I know that today would have been the anniversary. So I just want you to know I'm thinking of you. And I think she really appreciated it. And so just little things like that, like even though she and I didn't have a long conversation afterwards or anything, it was just a text conversation. I think it, oh my gosh, I'm about to cry. I'm about to cry because things like that are so fulfilling, and I feel closer to her even though it was just a simple exchange. And I know that that impacted her too. So that at the end of our lives, we might think like, yeah, I wish we'd chatted more. I wish we'd visited more, but at least like there's still some connection there. So go message someone, go call someone, and don't let that be one of your regrets. And then the fifth top regret among the dying is I wish that I'd let myself be happy. Just let that one sink in. One of my daily affirmations is I have permission to be happy. And I still have to work on that, but I think the reason I made that one of my affirmations is because it's so true. This regret of I wish I just let myself be happy. And I don't know why it's hard sometimes to let ourselves be happy. I think sometimes there's elements of guilt, or like, we feel guilty of I can't be too happy because there are people suffering in the world, or I can't give myself what I want because that would be selfish. And I think a lot of it is unnecessary. And our joy will not take away joy from someone else. Our happiness will only add to the happiness of the world. We're a collective consciousness. So the happier we are, the more joyful we are, then we're adding positivity and light and love to the world. And it's going to reach the people that need it. So yes, I think we can acknowledge people who are suffering. We can do what we can to help them. And that doesn't have to take away from our own happiness and joy. We are allowed to let ourselves be happy. And that might mean taking action and shifting things in your life. That might go back to the second regret of I wish I hadn't worked so hard, finding a job that's more alignment with your happiness, or the first regret, which was living more true to yourself instead of based on expectations of others. Let yourself be happy. Do the thing that lights you up, because you get one life. I mean, maybe we get more lives. I don't know. But we have one life right now. And these are the top regrets among the dying. And if someone's on their deathbed saying, I wish I just let myself be happy, there are probably a million little ways to do that. So go do something that brings you joy. What I encourage you to do for this regret is think of something that you love to do, or maybe something that you love to do as a child, and go do it. If it's like, oh, I've always wanted to learn piano, or I've always wanted to take a dance class, literally put it in your schedule and try to do it once a week or once a month or just one time. But go put it in your calendar right now so that you go do the thing. And then as a daily reminder, just give yourself permission to be happy. Give yourself permission to find joy. You don't have to be stressing all the time. And I'm speaking to myself when I say all of this too. So, as a recap, the top 5 regrets among the dying are I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Go tell someone how you feel about them. 4, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. And 5, I wish that I had let myself be happy. when I heard all of this, it really made me think about a lot of my life and how I'm spending my time and how I'm showing up. And so I would love to hear what resonated with you. If you feel like, oh, I'm not worried about that regret at all, but this one, oh my gosh, I totally see that. I would love to hear. So please share in the comments what resonated, what didn't, and if you have others or you've heard of other regrets that people have. I know, just talking to my mom who was told 3 years ago she had 2 months to live, so she's essentially dying. Whatever, for what it's worth. One of her regrets, I think, is not living up to her potential and just being afraid to reach her dreams and to even try. And she's never explicitly said that so much, but I can just kind of tell in our conversations. And so one of my life goals is to use my potential and to not let that be a regret. But even at my age now, I have regrets of things that I didn't do when I was younger that I can't go back and do now. But it's not too late for us. Okay, if you're listening to this, it's not too late. Go do the thing you want to do. And if you can't do it physically because, let's say, you're too old to be an NBA player or a gymnast or whatever, if some things do have age limits on them, particularly athletics, but do something similar or go play the sport on your own as a hobby. You don't have to be a professional to do the thing that makes you happy. So I hope that was interesting for you. Please share this video if you thought it was interesting. Leave me a comment to let me know what you thought. Thanks for watching.